The night my family laughed at the property I inherited was the same night they unknowingly handed me control over something that would quietly change the future of their entire empire. My name is Adriana Whitmore, and 3 months ago I sat at the far end of a polished mahogany table inside the Whitmore family boardroom overlooking the Thames in London while my father calmly divided the most powerful real estate portfolio in our family's history. Luxury towers in Manhattan. A vineyard estate in Napa Valley. A waterfront hotel chain expanding across the Mediterranean. Every property represented decades of ambition, influence and wealth that my grandfather had spent his entire life building. And everyone in that room assumed they already knew exactly how the inheritance would unfold. My older brother Lucas would receive the global development projects. My cousin Evelyn would inherit the European hotel division. And I was expected to receive whatever piece of the portfolio nobody else wanted. So when the final envelope slid across the table toward me and my brother leaned back in his chair with a quiet laugh, I already knew what was inside. The deed to Greyhaven Marine Research Station. A crumbling research facility sitting alone on the cliffs of Northumberland where wind, fog and saltwater had slowly eaten away at the stone walls for nearly 40 years. A property no developer had ever been interested in buying. No construction rights. No tourism potential. No obvious profit. Adriana always had a soft spot for lost causes, Lucas said while signing his inheritance documents. Evelyn barely tried to hide her smile. Congratulations, she added sweetly. You're officially the owner of the most useless property in the Whitmore estate. My father didn't laugh. But he didn't correct them either. Because as far as he was concerned, they were absolutely right. But what none of them knew at that moment was that the building they had just handed to me wasn't worthless at all. In fact, it was sitting on top of something that could reshape an entire industry. And by the time they realized what they had done, the balance of power in our family had already changed forever. But before I tell you how that happened, there's something you should know. What happened 8 months later shocked every single person who had been sitting in that room that day. And if you enjoy stories where the person everyone underestimates ends up quietly rewriting the entire game, make sure you subscribe because the ending of this story is something most people never see coming. The Whitmore family had always believed in a very simple philosophy. If something didn't produce immediate profit, it wasn't worth owning. My grandfather built Whitmore Developments by buying land before cities expanded toward it. He predicted growth before anyone else saw it coming. Skyscrapers, resorts, financial districts. But when my father inherited the company, that philosophy slowly shifted. Long-term curiosity was replaced with short-term profit. Research projects were cut. Experimental investments were ignored. And any property that couldn't be turned into luxury real estate within 5 years was quietly sold off. Which is exactly why nobody in my family cared about Greyhaven. To them it looked like a forgotten relic from one of my grandfather's stranger ideas. To me, it looked like the final piece of a puzzle I had been assembling for 4 years. 3 days after the inheritance meeting I flew north. Greyhaven Station stood alone on a jagged cliff overlooking the restless waters of the North Sea. The road leading to the property curved through miles of windswept grassland before ending at a rusted iron gate. When I stepped out of the car, the wind nearly knocked the door from my hand. Cold air rolled off the ocean carrying the smell of salt and rain. The research station looked exactly as I remembered it. Weathered stone walls. Tall observation windows facing the sea. Satellite antennas bending slightly under the pressure of the wind. To anyone else the place would have looked abandoned. But I could already see something my family had never bothered to notice. Possibility. 4 years earlier I had been working as an environmental analyst for a marine geology research project. Our team had been mapping deep ocean mineral formations across the northern Atlantic. Most of the scientific community was focused on oil reserves. But new battery technology had quietly created demand for something far more valuable. Rare earth minerals used in electric vehicle batteries. Lithium hybrids. Cobalt compounds. materials capable of powering the next generation of global energy infrastructure. And during one of our early sonar mapping sweeps, we detected something strange. A massive geological formation buried beneath layers of ocean sediment off the coast of Northumberland. At first the readings seemed impossible. The mineral density was too large, too concentrated. But every model we ran pointed back to the same location. The seabed directly below Greyhaven Station. The first night I returned to the research station, I powered up the old sonar arrays. The equipment hummed slowly back to life like machines waking from a long sleep. Outside, the wind battered the cliffside while waves crashed violently against the rocks far below. Inside the control room, the screens slowly filled with data. Layer after layer of ocean floor mapping appeared across the monitors. Sediment, stone, then finally, the mineral signature. Even larger than our earlier models predicted. I stared at the numbers in silence, because what they confirmed meant only one thing. Greyhaven wasn't just valuable. It was sitting above one of the largest rare earth mineral deposits ever discovered in European coastal waters. But the discovery itself wasn't the most important part. Timing was. Because if my family discovered the truth too early, they would try to reclaim the property immediately. And that was something I couldn't allow. So instead I did the one thing my father had never mastered. I waited. Over the next 4 months I quietly filed a series of legal protections around Greyhaven. Marine environmental research permits. Ocean preservation agreements. Scientific monitoring registrations. Every document strengthened one crucial detail. Greyhaven Station was now classified as a protected research facility, which meant commercial development was permanently banned along the surrounding coastline, including by Whitmore Developments. But the research rights connected to the property, those belonged exclusively to the landowner, which meant they belonged to me. Around this point in the story I always wonder something. If you were in my place, would you tell your family the truth immediately? Or would you wait until the moment when revealing it changes everything? Let me know in the comments what you would do. Because the moment that changed the entire story happened 6 months later. Whitmore Developments called another board meeting in London. This time the mood inside the room was tense. Energy markets were shifting faster than anyone predicted. Investors were demanding access to new battery technology research. Several global corporations were already searching for large-scale mineral sources. My father needed a new opportunity, which is when I walked into the boardroom carrying a thin black folder. Lucas looked up and smiled sarcastically. "Come to sell your broken lighthouse yet?" I placed the folder in front of my father. "Actually," I said calmly, "I came to offer Whitmore Developments an opportunity." Inside the folder were the geological surveys, ocean mapping reports, government permits, environmental agreements. Finally, the valuation estimate. £3 billion. The entire room went silent. Lucas leaned forward in disbelief. "This can't be real." "It's verified," I replied. 3 independent research institutions confirmed the findings last week. Evelyn stared at the map of the North Sea. "You're telling us that useless research station sits above a mineral deposit worth billions?" "Yes." My father slowly closed the folder. "And you control access to it?" I met his eyes calmly. "Yes." But the real surprise came next. Because I didn't offer to give the discovery to Whitmore Developments. Instead I offered them something very different. A partnership, I explained. The minerals themselves would take years to extract. But the research data, the environmental modeling, the battery material testing, those were immediately valuable. And Greyhaven was now the only research facility legally positioned to conduct that work. Meaning Whitmore Developments needed access to my property. Lucas laughed nervously. "You're bluffing." I looked directly at him. "I'm offering the company a 10% investment position in the research institute I've already created." The laughter stopped instantly. Because everyone in that room suddenly understood something my father had already realized. The daughter they had dismissed 6 months earlier, now controlled the most valuable opportunity Whitmore Developments had seen in decades. Just before my father answered, I added one final detail. The research institute has already received funding proposals from 3 energy companies. Silence filled the room. For the first time in my life, my father had no leverage. If you've ever been underestimated like that, if someone ever assumed you were the least important person in the room, then you already understand why this moment mattered. And if stories like this remind you that patience can be the strongest kind of revenge, make sure you subscribe. Because the ending of this story is the part that stayed with me the most. 1 year later, Greyhaven Marine Institute became one of the most important ocean energy research facilities in Europe. Universities partnered with our scientists. Energy companies funded our studies. The windswept cliff my family once called worthless became the center of a global discovery. Whitmore Developments did invest, but only as a minority partner, just like I offered, because by the time they realized what they had given away, the power had already shifted. Last winter I stood on the Greyhaven cliffs watching another North Sea storm roll toward the coastline. Researchers moved between laboratories behind me. Students monitored sonar scans inside the station. The building that once looked abandoned was alive again. And the truth I learned through all of this was simple. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is building something so valuable that the people who underestimated you have no choice but to watch it succeed.